The historic city of Miami Cemetery. Buried here are many of the pioneering families of early Miami. Julia Tuttle, the mother of Miami, who convinced Henry Flagler, the railroad tycoon, to extend the route of his Florida East Coast lines to Biscayne Bay, leading to the founding of the city of Miami. The Burdine family, that created the department store dynasty from a dry goods store. The Peacock family, who in the days before Miami became a city, had the only hotel between Lake Worth and Key West. And Alexander C. Lightbourne, one of the African American men who signed the charter making Miami a city. It was July 28, 1896, when Lightbourne and more than 300 men met in a building on Avenue D, which is now Miami Avenue. He was one of 162 black men who voted to incorporate the city. Isidore Cohen, an early resident, was there. He wrote in his memoirs that a darky named Lightbourne delivered the best speech in favor of incorporating the city. But who was A.C. Lightbourne, and what might have been his motivation for giving the speech?
He's a very accomplished person. And Republican Party bigwig during Reconstruction. I mean, the guy was amazing. If you see the inscriptions on the tombstone, you know, he was just a sort of a major force during Reconstruction, which was an era when African Americans had their first opportunity. And one of the founders of Greater Bethel AME Church. He's an unbelievable person.
August 23, 1866. The Civil War ended a little over a year ago in 1865, thus putting an end to slavery in the United States. The British Empire ended slavery even earlier in 1838. This was the time of Reconstruction, an exhilarating time for blacks, most of whom were former slaves. Filled with hope and promise, United States freed slaves and other blacks saw a brief period where things were fairly equal in opportunities between them and whites. On this August day, one 14-year-old young man traveled from the British West Indies island of New Providence, Bahamas. He disembarked the Eliza G. Czar's ship in New York. This is A.C. Lightbourne. By the time Lightbourne ended up in the Miami area, some 30 years later, he racked up an impressive resume even by today's standards. Lightbourne made his way to Tallahassee, Florida. 1868 records from the Freedmen's Bureau show that he was one of 9 teachers in Tallahassee under Colonel John T. Sprague. The name of the school he taught was Bethel. Bethel was the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Tallahassee in 1868.
The churches were very instrumental in forming schools when they did not have school systems available. The AME church pastors were also intimately involved in the politics of Reconstruction on the local level as well as on the state level.
Radical Reconstruction ushered in opportunities for blacks in the area of voting rights and leadership in the new Republican Party.
A lot of the early black legislators in Tallahassee at the time, Constitution Committee, House of Representatives, and Senators, they were black AME preachers.
In 1869, while only 17 years old, he was elected as a sergeant at arms in the Florida House of Representatives. During this time, he would have rubbed shoulders with the men seen here, men like Robert Meacham, Frederick Hill, Washington Pope, and John Wallace. Lightbourne's intelligence and performance brought him to the attention of Governor Harrison Reed. Reed appointed Lightbourne as a Justice of the Peace for Gadsden County in 1871. He was 19 years old. While in Gadsden County, he also sat on the Board of Commissioners. Lightbourne joined the Arnett AME Church in Quincy. It was probably here that he met his wife, Mary Elizabeth Ziegler. They married in 1872. The marriage produced 5 children. In 1873, he became trustee of Quincy AME Church. Lightbourne also worked for the railway mail service. He processed mail en route from Jacksonville to Chattahoochee, then to Pensacola when the railroad extended.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
Although blacks gained access to public offices, they were faced with constant intimidation and violence against them. This came mainly in the form of the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK arranged a campaign of terror in order to destroy the Republican Party. They were especially active in Florida, where hundreds of blacks and their allies were beaten or killed to suppress the black vote. Reconstruction essentially ended in 1877, and all the rights that blacks gained were taken away by the Democrats. He moved to Jacksonville with his family in 1885 and became master workman for the Knights of Labor Union. In 1888, a yellow fever epidemic broke out through the city of Jacksonville. Lightbourne was appointed to a committee to determine the needs of his community. The Florida State Department of Health was born from this organization. Several of these committee members moved on to permanent positions within the new department. This was not the case for Lightbourne. The events may have started to take a toll on Lightbourne. It was probably this lack of economic opportunities that prompted Lightbourne to move further down the Florida East Coast line. He worked as a teacher in Cocoa and Palm Beach. By 1896, Lightbourne and his family moved to the Miami area. He, along with hundreds of people, have moved because of news that Henry Flagler was extending his railroad there. While in Miami, in March of 1896, he, along with some colleagues, established one of the leading churches of the city in his home, the Greater Bethel AME Church. All of the events of Lightbourne's life have now led him to this moment on July 28, 1896, when he came to the attention of Isidore Cohen. Was he required to speak? What did he say? Did he hope to have an opportunity based on his abilities? He received his answer almost immediately. Segregation took effect immediately in the city that Lightbourne spoke for so eloquently in his speech. All colored people had no place in the brand new city. They were segregated to the Central Negro District, the upper northwest portion of the city, this place called Colored Town, later called Overtown. Lightbourne remained active as a teacher in Colored Town. In 1897, he became the superintendent for colored schools in Miami. There is one building in Overtown that bears Lightbourne's name. This is the Alex C. Lightbourne building, located on the grounds of the Bethel AME Church. Lightbourne's wife died in 1902. He became paralyzed in 1906. He died in 1908. He was 52 years old.